All right, what's up guys? Welcome to the video. I'm Coach Griffin, and today I'm going to walk you through how to get faster and specifically why you need to run slower in order to do that. Let's dive in. Welcome to the video. I want to start first things first by addressing the elephant in the room, the myth that running slow makes you slow. Now, a lot of people think that in order to run faster, they have to run faster because of this myth. And it's just absolutely not true. And the reason that it's not true is because in order to run fast, your body recruits both your type 1, your slow twitch muscle fibers, and your type 2, your fast twitch muscle fibers. So, if your type 1 muscle fibers, your slow twitch muscle fibers, which are the extremely fatigue resistant fibers, are really efficient, then it allows you to get to your top end, your fast twitch muscle fibers, and allows those to be even more effective. Now, this isn't to say that if you go run 20 miles, you're going to become the next Usain Bolt, but from my experience, my best 400 meters that I've ever run in my life came at the end of a 16 by 400 meter workout in college when I was running 100 to 120 miles a week. Most of that, 95% of that, really slowly. Now, before we talk too much more about the benefits and why and how to get those type 1 muscle fibers to be more efficient, we need to address that slow is relative. So your slow is different than my slow, is different than your neighbor's slow, is different than Joe Schmo's slow. Everyone's slow is relative to their functional threshold, and if you want to know what your functional threshold is, I have a great pace calculator on my website. You can go to the link in the description, download that for free, and that will help you understand what pace I'm talking about when I say aerobic endurance zone. So, without further ado, let's dive into the 5 major benefits and how to get those type 1 muscle fibers, those slow twitch muscle fibers, to be more efficient, and why long, slow distance training does just that. So, reason number 1, most important reason in efficiency, is that it builds mitochondria. Your muscles power your movements, and your mitochondria powers your muscles. So, if you remember back to biology, I have this nice crude little drawing of a mitochondria here. If you remember back to biology, there are these little tiny things in all of your cells that produce energy, and those are called your mitochondria. Now, if you were going to go do a long run, or if you're a triathlete and you want to go do a long bike ride or a long swim, and you then went to a lab and got a muscle biopsy afterwards, there would actually be shown an upregulated activity in your mitochondria. So if you do a long, slow distance training session in your aerobic endurance zone, or even under your aerobic endurance zone, you are actually building more mitochondria. So if you want to think of these as little power plants of your cell, that's how I like to think of them. You're building all these little power plants in your muscles, and those allow you to create more energy, so you have more energy to do everything else. So we want to build more mitochondria. That takes care of point number 1. Point number 2 is that it builds capillaries. Now, if we think back to our power plant example, I like to think of the capillaries as kind of the highway system that delivers the raw materials to the mitochondria. Now, your mitochondria can develop energy in a couple of different ways. You have your ATP synthesis, which is very short bursts. You have your aerobic pathway, and then you have your anaerobic pathway. And even for someone running something as short as a 5K, even a little bit less than that, you're really utilizing 90 to 95% of your aerobic pathway to get your energy. Even though it feels like you're breathing really hard, you're not quite at that VO2 max level where your body can't take in as much oxygen as it needs to get to your muscles and therefore kick you into the anaerobic system. So in all of these races, we're primarily relying on our aerobic pathway. We want that to be as efficient as possible. So when we think of our capillaries as the highway system that delivers our blood, which carries oxygen, to the mitochondria, which uses the oxygen to create more energy. These two things then go hand in hand. We want to deliver, I have a little tiny crude drawing of a capillary, of a blood vessel, trying to deliver this little oxygen to a mitochondria. So the more of those we have, the more of those two things we have, the more efficient our aerobic system is going to be. The next benefit number 3, it strengthens our connective tissue and our bone density. And this is extremely important because of one word: consistency. If you want to become a better runner, you need to run consistently. In any given year, 80% of runners are injured at some point. That's a really, really high injury rate. Now, in order to get this training stimulus, to get these two things, to build our mitochondria and to build our capillaries, we need a consistent training stimulus. In order to have a consistent training stimulus, we can't be injured. Injury is the opposite of consistent. So, when we have a strong connective tissue and strong bone density, we're less likely to develop overuse injuries like patellofemoral syndrome, like Achilles tendinopathies, you name it. We're less likely to develop those things, which allows us to train day after day, week after week, month after month, even year after year. Now, we want to think about this from a mechanical load standpoint. When you're running fast, that produces a lot of force, a lot of load, and I'm not a physicist, but it produces a lot of this mechanical load that your tissues have to absorb and accept. Now, your muscles adapt really, really quickly to this, but your bones and your connective tissues don't adapt quite as quickly. Now, by running slow, it allows them to adapt because it's a lower mechanical load. It's enough to stimulate some sort of growth, but it's just a little bit less. It allows you to build and strengthen connective tissue, bone strength, which allows you to be more consistent, which allows you to be more efficient. Next, point number 4, it helps us get better at burning fat. Burning fat is extremely, extremely important when it comes to longer races. In the shorter races, you can get away with not being quite as efficient at utilizing fat as your energy source because you have enough stored carbohydrates to make it through 90 minutes of aerobic exercise. The hard part comes in when we step up to the half marathon, the marathon, half Ironman, because you don't have enough stored glycogen in order to make it to the end of that race without taking in more carbohydrates. Now, this is probably a topic for another day, but I'll go a little bit deeper on this. So, if you have to take in carbohydrates, that's another variable that you have to play with because your stomach can only handle so much without risking stomach distress. With that said, we want to be as efficient at using fat, which our body has lots of. Even someone that's 5% body fat, super lean, has upwards of 40,000 calories worth of energy that they can use. So, the more effective we are at burning fat as a percentage of energy demand, then the easier it is for us to make it to the finish line without bonking. Now, again, that's probably a topic for another day, but this long, slow distance stuff helps us get better at utilizing fat, especially when you combine it with the use of exogenous ketones and a little bit of fasted training. Now, there's definitely a wrong way to do this, so it's not something that I would recommend that you just throw all caution to the wind and go out and try to run for 2 hours without taking in any carbohydrates. It's something that you should build up to, especially if you want to be more efficient. And the reason is a couple things. Using something like this increases number 4, but when you do some of this stuff in a fasted state, low glycogen, it actually upregulates this to an even higher degree. So you're building even more mitochondria and becoming extremely efficient at using fat, and you can help your body store more glycogen after the fact. So you're not only becoming able to use more fat, but when it comes to race day, you'll have more glycogen to be able to draw from as well. Awesome. So there's going to be a link to exogenous ketones that I use in the link below. Point number 5 is that it mitigates nervous system stress. And I touched on this a little bit when I talked about the strengthening connective tissue and bone density, but when our nervous system is really stressed out from work, family, etc., but then we layer on top of it high intensity intervals, really fast training, it's a lot harder to recover from. Our heart rate variability drops and we want it to come back up, but it doesn't come back up nearly as quickly when we do fast training. So when we do slow training and we keep our heart rate below our aerobic endurance threshold or our aerobic threshold, it's actually much easier to recover from efforts like that. Of course, if you push yourself way beyond the boundaries and you go out and run for 3.5, 4 hours when you're only used to running for an hour, that's something that your body's not used to, and that can also play into your nervous system. So there's all sorts of rules of thumb with how quickly you can ramp up your training and that sort of a thing. But today we're just talking about the benefits of doing long, slow distance training once you're able to do so. It keeps your nervous system in a state that allows you to recover, which leads to consistency. And consistency over time then allows you to hit those high intensity intervals and then come back down to a normal level really quickly. So those are the 5 main benefits of long, slow distance training. There's another 6th benefit. I'm gonna write this bonus a little bit over here. All right, the bonus benefit is that it is fun. Long runs are a beautiful way to get out, enjoy nature, and have conversations with your friends and your training partners. That is something that a lot of runners look forward to. Yes, the really big training sessions might cause a little bit of dread, but a lot of times it's those long runs that are a little bit of almost like escapes from reality when you go out there and you're just goofing around with your friends. It's conversational. It allows you to decompress while getting a lot of a good training benefit in. So if it's fun, again, it's going to lead to consistency. When you look forward to doing something, you're going to actually go do it. That is probably the most important reason, although the physical benefits are there as well. All right, guys, thank you for watching the video. If you got something out of it, give it a like, share with your training partners, help them get faster, help them become more efficient by running slower. This stuff absolutely works. It's possible to run really fast off of running really slow. So hopefully you got something out of it. There's going to be a lot more videos coming your way soon on how to be more efficient, how to get faster. So stay tuned, subscribe, and see you next time.